Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Pinstripe Prospects Podcast. It's episode number 31. Happy to be back with you once again. After we record this, the Yankees actually won a game in 9 innings that was supposed to go 9 innings. I believe it's the first time since we last talked to you. So that's going to make this podcast really interesting. I'm Ricky Keeler, back with you once again. Just only a little over 2.5 weeks to the end of the season, and now who knows if the Yankees make the playoffs. Never thought we'd actually say that. So we'll talk about the Yankees' frustrations, who's to blame, what might happen, where's the panic meter. But we'll talk about some good things. Deivi Garcia, another good start. We've seen Clark Schmidt a couple times since we last were on the podcast. We'll talk about what Clark Schmidt's been doing. We'll look back at 3 up and 3 mostly down from this past week. Look ahead to a big 4-game series with the Orioles. Never thought I would say that, but that's where we are. Bingo. And then we'll just talk about everything else going on in the world of baseball as we're getting close to the postseason. Ron, you can tweet us on Twitter at Pinstripe Pros. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Please give a rating. We hope it's 5 stars. We just want to hear from you. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. You can email me as well, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll tell you more about the Dugout membership program and how you can subscribe a little bit later on in the program. So back with me again this week is our great runner of our social media, Alexis Farinacci's here. Alexis, how you doing?
Doing well. Yankees pulled out a win. NFL season starts tomorrow, and I'll be 27 tomorrow. So, good night for me.
See, on your birthday, Garrett Cole pitches, which is usually a good thing. Except he's playing the Orioles, who beat him the last time, but it's usually a good thing.
We'll see.
Hopefully Garrett Cole will get you a W. That would be good. And joining us this week, James O'Connell's not here, but Robert Coles, our writer from Pinstripe Prospects, is here. Robert, how you doing?
Doing well. I'm happy to be back. I know I get to fill in for James sometimes. It's always fun. So I'm excited.
Happy to have you back, Robert. So before we get into doom and gloom, I say we start positive. I like starting positive. So let's do that. The Yankees, as we record this show, won their game 7-2, the final. Hold on. Won their game 7-2 over the Blue Jays. Good performance by Deivi Garcia, as I mentioned. Goes 7 innings, 2 runs, strikes out 6. Alexis, I'll start with you. Just the great performance. Talk about the great performance by Garcia. And really, I think going back to that Met game we talked about last week, and then a good performance in the doubleheader against the Orioles. Not a bad performance from the kid in his first 3 games.
No, yeah, Davies looked kind of almost want to say lights out. I mean, going deep into the game as he needs to. Again, you look at Deivi going 7 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, 3.06 ERA. I think that's one of the lower ERAs of the Yankees starters right now. I could almost say he's in that top of the rotation almost as an ace right now. With the other pitchers struggling as they have done so far. Really liked what I've seen out of Deivi. Coming out of summer camp where he had a little bit of a rocky start to really show what he can do in these games here this season. Just really impressive. 18 total strikeouts. Really good stuff from the young kid.
Yeah, Robert, I'll turn to you on this. We also saw Garcia pitch to Gary Sanchez behind the plate. This wasn't Eric Kratz, who he worked well with the first couple starts, and you can see that kind of father-son relationship they have in a way. But Gary did a good job for him behind the plate, even threw out a runner late in the game in the bottom of the 8th. So to see Garcia take that next step and throw to the Yankees starting catcher is also a really good sign of where they see Deivi going forward as a big part of this last 2.5-week stretch of games.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally encouraging to see. But one thing with Deivi that is just so awesome to see, especially out of a 21-year-old, is that he really just has control over himself on the mound. He's very deliberate. He just kind of gets the ball back and throws it. And there were points tonight where I was really shocked by some of the pitches he was throwing. I think he struck out, I forget who it was, but threw an 87-mile-an-hour slider, which is elite-level type stuff. And I think his fastball touched 95 at points, although sometimes it was a little flat. But, I mean, his overall command and presence on the mound, at 21 years old is really encouraging to see someone be that deliberate and just get the ball and attack hitters the way he does.
And the Yankees offense helped him out in a big way in this game. Gleyber Torres actually became Gleyber Torres again since returning to the lineup on Saturday. 2 for 5, 4 RBI, a solo home run in the second off Tanner Roark, and then picked up 3 more ribbies along the way. DJ LeMahieu, 2 walks and an RBI. Luke Voit, 1 for 5 with an RBI, so he at least gets back on track a little bit. Clint Frazier, a multi-hit game with an RBI in this one. And Alexis, it really just comes down to it. While the Yankees wait for the guys to get back in terms of Judge and Stan, they're going to need the LeMahius, the Voits, the Torreses, and the Fraziers to kind of carry this lineup with all the sub 200, sub 1, in the cases near sub 100 batting averages a lot of these guys have.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a great thing that we saw a strong performance out of LeMahieu and out of Torres tonight. Torres going 2 for 5, LeMahieu 1 for 3, both homering tonight. I think the guys are starting to show that they want it. I think that frustration has really set in. I think the talk with Brian Cashman, who I don't think we rarely see him go into a clubhouse and have a conversation like he did yesterday with the players. Last night coming out with that loss again, but something fired him up today, and that needs to stay. Whether or not something just started clicking or whatever happened, they need to keep it going because while you said it, Judge and Stanton are out, 2 big parts of the lineup, these other guys have got to step up. Talking about Sanchez and talking about Gardner, they need to get going. Again, both going 0 for 3 tonight. Sanchez looked very good behind the plate, but at the plate, not doing much. Needs to get going.
So despite the win in this game, I never thought that we would go this route, but we actually have to give score updates. The Orioles and Mets, as we record, are tied in their baseball game. Seattle's playing the Giants. Wait, we actually have to give a Mariner score update? It's really weird what's going on with the Yankees right now because you would think they would be in a much better position. They started 16-6. So, Robert, I'll start with you on this one. Where's the panic meter right now? Even after the win tonight. Let's go with this. Where is the panic meter for you before this win today, and where is it for you now?
I think, at least in my kind of visualization of this season, my panic meter is not, incredibly high. I mean, I think, you look at the playoff projections, we're somewhere probably now, before this Orioles game, I think we were at 85% or something to make the playoffs. Probably after this win, it's probably higher. If the Orioles lose, it'll definitely be a tick higher. So, based on that, I've been pretty confident. We obviously play the Orioles 3 times coming up, and I think, we'll be able to take 2 out of 3 there. So I've kind of looked at this through the lens of, I've tried to peel some layers back and see if we've gotten unlucky and because this is a good team. And when you look at the team on the whole this year, their ex-WOBA, their actual WOBA this year is 15th overall in the league at like 321, whereas their ex-WOBA is 348, and that's good for 5th best in the league. And usually with a team like the Yankees, is their ex-WOBA is supposed to, or their WOBA is supposed to be higher than their ex-WOBA because they play at Yankee Stadium, and all those park effects are taken into account. So a lot of what I've been doing is trying to find ways to kind of calm my anxiety about the chances of this team missing the playoffs, and just say, at the end of the day, this team has, while they have not played their best, they have also gotten, incredibly unlucky in spots. Adam Ottavino has a 7.82 ERA, but a 4.32 xERA. Chad Green, 4.26 ERA, 2.66 expected ERA. So I just I think, later this month, hopefully things go our way a little bit more. And it really just comes down to the fact that, the guys in the field are good players. But, things will go our way, and, I think we'll get into the playoffs, and, hopefully it's not too stressful. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of room for us to turn it around. And I don't think there's too much need for panic or the amount of panic that you kind of see, out there, especially on Twitter right now.
Yeah, I think, Alexis, when you look at this, it's more, I think a lot of Yankee fans kind of looked at it a week ago and said, yeah, it's the Orioles, it's the Tigers, it's the Mariners. Heck, the Astros are even in danger of missing the playoffs, which you never thought you would say, but they've had so many injuries, and would say, all right, you're fine, you're the Yankees, you'll make the playoffs. But you got to take these teams seriously in a 60-game season, and it just feels like, in a way, it just has kind of hit the Yankees now, oh, wait, we've got to start playing better because these teams are behind us. And you can understand fans saying, well, yeah, it's the Orioles, it's the Tigers who lost 19-0 on Wednesday, but they're still in the mix too. And while they were supposed to be bad, and we kind of made fun of them on our prediction show, they are mediocre, and dare I say the Yankees are mediocre?
Yeah, I think that's definitely not something we thought we would be saying at this rate. But, we said it. We have to give score updates on the Orioles, on the Mariners, teams that we didn't think couple months ago we were going to have to worry about. When we gave our season predictions, all of us said, "Oh, the second half of the season." Maybe we jinxed it. We said it. The Yankees' second half of the season's in the bags. It's ours. It's ours to take. And clearly, we're now seeing that might not be the case. I'm with Robert when I don't think you necessarily need to panic yet, but I think there's a level of understanding that the Yankees are struggling right now, and that if they don't get on course, we could see a Yankees team miss the playoffs this year, which we didn't think we'd be saying this year either.
No, I did not think we were going to say that at all. And I think here's my question on this. What's more at fault for the Yankees? And Alexis, you can start, and Robert, you can follow. Is it the offense or is it the bullpen? Because I feel like they never coincide. Starting pitching's been okay. Like we've seen Cole, not his best, but I think he's done okay. Tanaka has been not great, but good enough. Montgomery we'll get to later. He's been bad. Hap's been okay. So I can't really put the starting pitching in this conversation, I think. So let's go. It seems like when the offense scores, the bullpen blows the lead or vice versa. So is it the offense's fault or is it the bullpen's fault?
I got to go offense. I think our bullpen's done a decent enough job to at least keep us in games. Yeah, they've had a couple games where they've struggled, but if you look at our bullpen for the most part, they're the reason some of these scores haven't been absolute blowouts. I think they've kept us in it, and we've been scoring anywhere between 1 to 3 runs a night recently. Look back to the Orioles losses. We scored 5 there. Scored 5 there. Lost to them with 1 run. Scored 3. Scored 1. Scored 1 again to the Blue Jays the other night, and then pulled off the 7 runs tonight. I don't think we've been seeing high-scoring games. I think it's been our offense has just been in a slump that they are trying to find their way out of.
Yeah, Ricky, you make a good point about how it seems to be, one night the bullpen will show up or the pitching will show up and the hitting won't, and vice versa. But I mean, if you look at the last 5 games, and Alexis makes a good point too, is 5 of those, or last 10 games, 5 of those games have been, we've scored 2 runs or less, but then the other 5 have been situations where we've blown leads. So if you go back to August 26th, that Braves game where Chad Green gave up the 2-run homer to Freddie Freeman in the bottom of the 6th in the 7th inning game. And then you obviously had that 2-game doubleheader Mets debacle where Dom Smith killed us and we gave up 5 runs in the 6th in game 1, and then the Rosario walk-off at Yankee Stadium game 2. And then the Alonso walk-off blowing a 7-4 lead there, the Schmidt debut, and then of course the 10-run disaster inning for Adam Ottavino and Chad Green. I mean, it's one of those things where it really just is a mix of both. And sometimes in baseball, you're going to have times where, the lineup isn't showing up and the pitching is doing well, and then you lose a game that way. Or you have games where the hitting is showing up and the bullpen doesn't show up. And that's kind of been, the curse for the Yankees the last 10 games is just not being able to put it all together. But you saw it today. They had the lead. Britton came in, pitched well. Chapman came in, was dominant. I mean, hopefully that's, a sign of things to come for the team.
Yeah, to me, I think the offense, I would put it like maybe 60-40 offense. Because there are nights where you're just like, man, the Yankees just can't get anything done. And the same guys seem to be the ones messing up in the big situations. But they've got so many guys out, it's really tough to expect this offense going to go crazy, although some guys have underachieved. But then on nights when they score 4 or 5 runs, the bullpen can't seem to hold the lead. Robert, you mentioned the disaster in Buffalo against the Blue Jays where they get a 6-2 lead and absolutely let the game implode. But even look at the games, and you brought up all of them. The Atlanta game they blew in the doubleheader. The Met games, both the doubleheader and the one at Citi Field. The Yankees could have somehow, if they had gotten through a couple of those, would have been in a much better position than they're in right now. And Adam Ottavino has not earned 1 dime of that $36 million contract he has. They paid him like Zach Britton. He's supposed to be Zach Britton, and he hasn't been that. Zach Britton, outside of tonight, he had a couple rough moments over the past week. Chapman's had a few rough moments over the last week. Chad Green we talked about it last week. I think the layoff they had because they missed those Met games because of the Mets COVID-19 situation, it kind of got them a little bit. And that's where I can't kind of really rip the bullpen. But I can also say a lot of the time they're handed a lead, and you even saw it. Look at Sunday's game. 2-1 ball game. You got Boone going to Sessa because they really don't have anything else left. where you're seeing Clark Schmidt pitch in non-clean innings because Aaron Boone just doesn't have the answers, and it's tough to say you should have the answers because there's not exactly many options he can go to.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the Schmidt debut. He literally, I mean, it's a tough position to come in, for your debut. But you said it. I mean, Boone literally had no choices, really. Everyone was spent. The Yankees couldn't go to Britton, Chapman, Green. Each of them had already pitched in the earlier game that day. It was the second straight day of work for them as well. For Green, it was his third. So then his options were basically Schmidt or Albert Abreu, I think, or maybe Miguel Ujore. But yeah, I mean, you said it. I mean, that Mets postponement and then it being made up, and then us having to spend the entire bullpen in that game, and then, of course, us blowing the game. Those things just piled up. It seemed to be that those games really piled up for the team, and they couldn't really get it all together, and they just didn't have the arms to win those games against Baltimore, which is kind of why I hope that we can come out against Baltimore this series a little bit more prepared, have more fresh arms, and, kind of take it to them and cement our spot in the playoffs.
So the next thing I wanted to turn to, Alexis, and I know we had in there waiting for Judge and Stanton. To me, I have to assume Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton aren't coming back. I know Boone has given the update that they're starting to do baseball activities and things like that, but I think it's for me, with the case of those two guys, I kind of have to see it to believe it. Because you get to the point where they ramp up their activities and then something happens. You had the setback with Judge the last time he tried to come back, and who knows if they try to get him back just for that last week. We know James Paxton might throw off a mound pretty soon, so he's getting on the way back, but that might be to the final week. You kind of have to assume, and Brian Cashman kind of hinted at it in his meeting with the team on Tuesday, there's not much else coming, and if you go off that comment specifically, it sounds like you have to play the rest of the year with maybe in the back of your mind, Judge and Stanton aren't coming back.
Yeah, at this point, you're not waiting on Judge and Stanton. You can't. We saw last time you alluded to, Judge failed his rehab, so he was told, you're not coming back right now. Are we going to see that again? Is that going to happen again? Stanton, he comes back, he gets injured, he goes back on the IL. Hate to say it like that, but at this point, no, you can't wait for those guys. You've got to get these bats going with the lineup that you have now, prepared to go into playoffs with the lineup you have now, if we can even get there.
So I'm looking at these two guys particularly, Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman. And the one thing I look at with the Yankees, and I think they're going to make the playoffs, think they're going to be fine, but I don't think we've done this on the show yet. So I think it's fine to give the hypothetical scenario. Because I think it's actually realistic. Whether you want to believe it or not, I believe it's actually realistic. What if the Yankees missed the playoffs? And I think when people say the fans don't control the team, keep this in mind. There's no fans this year, and the Yankees kind of want the fans to come back next year because of the revenue. Most will come back because it's baseball, and they're glad to go to a baseball game again. But I don't think the Yankees, if they miss the playoffs, can just chalk it up to we've had injuries, shortened season, things happen. I don't think that's going to fly with what they spent on Garrett Cole and things like that. I think Matt Blake is safe because it's his first year on the job and they revamped this entire pitching. You can't fire him after basically 60 games. I don't think that makes sense. So besides Matt Blake, and Robert, I'll start with you, and Lexus, you can follow. If the Yankees miss the playoffs, does anybody go?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no. To be honest with you, I guess one is because it is really hard for me to envision a scenario where the Yankees miss the playoffs. But yeah, no, I think especially when people talk about the firing of Brian Cashman, I don't think there are really any scenarios except for maybe losing every single game where he would get fired. I mean, he is so entrenched into the organization. He has built up that entire baseball operations department. He's built up, pretty much everything they've done, since the mid-'90s to kind of take them to where they are now, which is a very good baseball team that is well run from top to bottom. And then that kind of goes into my point about Boone being safe, is I think Boone really fits every single bullet point that the Yankees look for in a manager, especially vis-a-vis Joe Girardi. Very in touch with analytics, does not give up too much to the media, tries to really stay even keel, have a human touch with his players. I just think there's too much there that fits well with Boone and Cashman and kind of the way how the Yankees run things. Where if they were to miss the playoffs, yeah, I think a lot of people would be, calling for heads to roll, but I don't think it would really be in the Yankees' best interest to make a move because, that's reactionary and not part of the bigger picture for them, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I don't think anybody goes. Let's hope the Yankees can keep this win streak alive now that we've won one. Let's see if we can get 2 tomorrow and go from there. But let's hope we make playoffs. If we don't, I think even in the scenario of a 60-game season, such a weird season, I really don't think anybody goes. I don't know that you can. With so many teams seeing injuries, you can't touch the strength and conditioning guys right now. Plus, it's a whole new year with them. And, as it was stated, it was kind of expected that guys would respond differently to the different training program and such, and that it would take some time for them to get used to that. Boone, again, it's a 60-game season. Cashman, I don't see Mr. Steinbrenner getting rid of him at all. I don't think anyone goes.
Yeah, it's tough for me to see Boone and Cashman going in this scenario. I think Brian Cashman, it's one of those cases where I think he's got a job until he doesn't want it anymore because he's been here so long. I think it'd have to get really catastrophic to see him go. And for Aaron Boone, I think he's just done too much over the last 2 seasons to warrant going after a 60-game year because I don't think it's all his fault. I don't think that a lot of the Yankees' decisions they make are from an analytics-based thing. You're going to blame Aaron Boone because the numbers told you one thing and then didn't work. I mean, I think you're in a scenario where if you have to get somebody maybe in the hitting department just because you'd have to have somebody, I feel like, but I wouldn't advocate for it. I wouldn't go crazy if they didn't fire like a hitting coach or something like that. I think for the Yankees, it's just a matter of everything's gone wrong and spiraled out of control. And it's one thing where I look at this team, and it's taken them a long time to recover from that Rays 4-run inning on Wednesday where the Rays just came in, punched them right in the mouth, and it's basically taken them a week to recover. And that's a bad sign if you're looking for a championship team that has to get through adversity, in my mind.
Yeah, that was the one point, after the scuffle the night before, where I kind of thought the Yankees at that point were going to wake up. And then since then, it's arguably been worse since before. But yeah, I mean, just on the topic of people getting let go, I think it is important just to keep in mind that this team has, by many standards, been incredibly unlucky in spots this year. Even in that 10-run inning the other day, Voit probably should have made a play. If he's a better defender, that inning probably doesn't spiral out of control. I brought it up earlier, but the Ottavino expected ERA versus actual, same with Green. I mean, Chad Green's expected ERA is sub-3, and our hitting has been unlucky. I mean, we're a team, especially last year. If you look at last year, our WOBA was higher than our ex-WOBA. And, last year you could say we got unlucky, probably not a 100-win team. We won all of our one-run games, last year. And this year the story is a little bit different. We're getting a little unlucky. Our ex-WOBA is 25 points higher than our WOBA. And I think that's really something to keep in mind. I mean, if you've watched this team every single day, things have just kind of bounced the wrong way for us. And in a 60-game season, that gets amplified, magnified. You start to panic a little bit more. The losses mean a little bit more. So just getting unlucky is a little bit more, hurtful in a season like this. But I just think the next 3 weeks are really a time where the Yankees can say, hey, you know what? We are a good team. We have good players. We are confident in the guys we have here, and really go on a little bit of a run and try to cement their spot in the playoffs. And I think that's what they will do, just based on, kind of how they played tonight and, getting a little bit healthier as the end of the year goes on.
In the end, I think this team is going to be in the postseason. And I mean, to me, if you're the Yankees, you just got to get in and figure it out from there. Hopefully you get Judge and Stanton back for the postseason and that best of 3, even though you'd have to, as far as I know from right now, likely go on the road before the bubble. Like those first best of 3s will be in the higher seeds ballpark. So you'd have to go to Tampa or go to Oakland or something like that. You could still get second place. I just think the Blue Jays right now, even despite losing the game on Wednesday, look like the better team than the Yankees. I think they've got that good mojo going. They're young. They don't know any better. And I think that, Alexis, is what scares you, if anything, about the teams that are behind the Yankees. The Orioles are young and don't know any better. The Tigers are young and don't know any better. Seattle doesn't know any better. And I think that's scary for those teams. They're playing with house money. They've got nothing to lose. The Yankees got everything to lose.
Yeah, exactly. These young guys, they're excited. They want it. Like you said, they've got nothing to lose right now. Whereas the Yankees have their reputation of we haven't won a World Series in a long time, and at this point, can we even continue to call ourselves the 27 World Series champs when 27 time when we're sitting at not having won in over 10 years? A little bit of a scary thought there. These guys, younger guys, like you said, they have nothing to lose. They're excited. They're fired up. Uh, the Yankees have everything to lose right now, and a fan
Yeah,
base might not come back.
I mean, yeah, I definitely agree with that part. Is I think because of kind of how things have not gone the team's way, and we've lost a lot of games that we probably should have won. Like, you could make the case that we should be 24-18 right now. If we win 3 of those games that the Yankees bullpen blew, we're in a much better spot. But yeah, just kind of back to your point, Alexis, is I definitely think with the pressure that's building, and you kind of see it in guys like Hicks and Sanchez, they're kind of just pressing at the plate. You can see that they're kind of overthinking their at-bats to some degree, and they're trying to attack early. With Gary, it kind of goes up there and looks like he's swinging like he's in 0-2 and trying to protect and doing everything he can to try to not strike out while at the same time striking out in half of his at-bats. With Hicks, he's getting on base a lot, but there was a pitch a couple nights ago where he audibly yelled at himself on 3-2 because he knew, that is not a pitch that I swing at usually. And I think these guys, especially some of them like Ford, maybe even Talkman, who have been struggling and who are just good hitters, are just pressing. And I think that's definitely part of the issue here. And hopefully that can, be remedied by some success in this next week and we can move forward from it. But yeah, I definitely think the pressure is a real thing for this team. They definitely hear all the noise. And they definitely know that they're a little shorthanded without Judge and Stanton, so they probably put a lot more pressure on themselves. But yeah, I mean, it's something that they're just going to have to overcome if they want to do what they want to do this year.
I agree.
So let's take a look at, since we're mainly a Yankee minor league side, we got to talk about Clarke Schmidt. We've talked about the anticipation of Clarke Schmidt getting his debut. People have called for it on this show. They've been calling for people to be out of the rotation because of this guy on our show. And Schmidt, I thought, as I mentioned, the Oriole game, not being able to pitch in a clean inning kind of got him a little bit. But you look at that relief appearance he had against the Blue Jays on Monday, and he came in, walked a couple, but did strike out a couple, didn't allow any runs in this game. I want to get both of your thoughts on Schmidt. Robert, I'll start with you. What did you think of him so far?
I mean, I agree. I think the situation that he made his debut in was definitely a suboptimal one, but I mean, he is a good pitcher. I think he's necessarily, ready to be great right now? No. And I think what impresses me more than just kind of the way he's come out and pitched, like he's, a 12K per 9, all of that is great. But I think the way he responded to, him being brought into that Baltimore game was really positive. He said, I want the moment. I wanted to take on that challenge. And that's obviously something you love to see out of a young player. He was clearly very enthusiastic. He wasn't down about his performance. He's just a competitor. And I think that more than, his performance in a 2-game sample, or a 2-inning sample, I should say, kind of speaks more volumes to me, when it comes to like your attitude as a player and how you, plan to carry yourself.
Yeah, Alexis, what did you think? And I'll lead off with this question as well. What do you think Schmidt's role is going forward?
I'll start off with what I thought of him. I thought he's done well from the start. I thought that was a really, really tough situation he had to come into on the 4th at Baltimore. But I think that second game against Toronto, when we saw him, come back in for a full inning, no hits, no runs, 2 strikeouts. Yes, he had a couple walks as well. But I thought a much more positive outing out of him that second time around. I think he was more comfortable, kind of knew what to expect. I think he came into a really, really high-pressure situation in that first game. Unfortunately, was credited with 2 of those earned runs, and was one of the reasons the Yankees lost that game, which was unfortunate. But overall, I think we see him in relief right now. Unless one of our starters starts struggling more, maybe he gets a start here, or, we have a doubleheader coming up, maybe he starts in a doubleheader. But I think for now they leave him in the bullpen, especially while he's growing and learning.
And that's not exactly a bad thing for the Yankees to have, because I think one of the injuries with the Yankees and one of the players they've secretly kind of missed is Jonathan Loaisiga. And they're still kind of looking for that Loizaga, Chad Green type. Now that Chad Green's in a much more prominent role in the bullpen, maybe Schmidt's this 2020 version of Chad Green. I mean, that's always a possibility. You can throw the fastball averaging at 95 to go with that curveball. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea to at least try it. I mean, we've seen the boost Garcia's given the Yankees in the rotation. Maybe Schmidt provides that boost in the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, Chad Green is a great pitcher, period. And obviously Clark Schmidt being likened to him would be amazing. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Alexis. I don't see him taking on a huge role. I don't really see him taking on, the role of maybe even filling in for anyone in the rotation. It definitely helps to have more arms than not, especially ones that can throw 95 plus and have, solid off-speed stuff. But yeah, I think it's going to be more of like a growth process with him. I don't think he's ready to kind of come into games and come into high leverage situations and help us pull some wins out. But I mean, I think for the rest of the year, there's definitely spots where we can use him to kind of just fill innings and hopefully get a better idea of, how good he's going to be and how good he can be.
And like I mentioned before, I don't think Boone is to blame for Schmidt not coming in for a clean inning. I get where people can get upset with that, but at the same time, the Yankees don't have much to turn to. They've gone to Sessa, they've gone to Nick Nelson, they went to Ben Heller at times before they sent him back to the alternate site. They've tried everything, and they're just right now looking for something that works. And if Schmidt could give them anything in a good role, I think they would absolutely take that right now. So before we get into 3 up and 3, well, mostly down, I want to remind you here at Pinstripe Prospects, we provide exclusive minor league content to paid subscribers with our Dugout membership program. You get scouting reports, player interviews, features, and much more in addition to our major league coverage. You can sign up today for our Dugout membership program for either $5.50 a month or $40 a year. And by doing that, you can try us out for free for 30 days. You got to use the promo code #WelcomeBackBaseball. Again, use the hashtag #WelcomeBackBaseball. You get your first 30 days free. So you're not sure and you're like, I want to see if I give him a shot. That's where 30 days free are for. And I guarantee I think you will enjoy it. We have great content up about the minor leagues on our website. We always have great interviews with coaches, with players. There's so much on the site and scouting reports that we do that you don't get anywhere else. So please give us a chance. Try out that Dugout membership program today. So it's time for the weekly installation of 3 Up, 3 Down. And like I said, it's been 3 up and 3 mostly down. If you're new to the program, we basically talk about 3 players that have been good this past week. Yes, we're going to try to find 3 players actually good this week. And 3 players that are, well, not playing well, to just be polite. Alexis, since you're the recurring host on the panel, I'm going to have you go first. Let's keep it positive. Let's go our 3 up this week first.
My 3 ups have got to go to Deivi Garcia. His couple starts that we've seen him in absolutely looks phenomenal. Really like what I've seen out of him. You got to go Voit. Voit's continuing to swing a hot bat and to stay alive. And then Clint Frazier as well. I thought he's done really, really well since he's been with us.
Rob, you're 3 up for this week. Who do you like?
Yeah, so I think one, especially from the batter side, is Miguel Andujar. Past 7 days, 225 WRC plus, 504 WOBA. He's got a homer in there. I mean, he is someone that, especially in the beginning of the year, that I thought was kind of a complete lost cause. But if he's hitting the ball well, and he can help the team win games this year, great. Outside of that, yeah, I mean, I would have said Deivi as well, but I guess for the sake of tonight, I'll say Aroldis Chapman. Best he's looked in a really long time. He's such an important part of this team and closing games, and it's just really nice to see him kind of get going again. And then outside of that, Gleyber Torres. I mean, his presence was obviously felt more so today, but having him back in the lineup, more or less having Thairo Estrada out of the lineup and having him in there every day really just helps this team from a feel perspective. And I think just gives us, gives the team a little bit more confidence going into every game.
Definitely good choices there. So for my 3 up, I'm gonna start with Clint Frazier, who has, dare I say, driven in the most runs for the Yankees over the last week, at least coming into today. 7 for 28, but he had a pair of home runs, 5 RBI. I can make a good defensive play in right field for Garcia on Wednesday. So Frazier, you could tell, is at least improved on his defense out there. And really, he's become a guy that you can't give him days off. He's got to play on a day in, day out basis. And we can get into that later with the whole deciding where the Yankees actually, give guys days off or not. But right now, Frazier would be number 1 on my list. Number 2, I'm going to go with Garcia as well. Just for, again, the boost that he gives to this baseball team. You have to respect kind of just the emotion he brings to the mound and just kind of the spark that he's given this pitching rotation with the way he's been able to throw the ball. And I'm going to give some love to, again, well, James isn't here. And I know he had a bad inning against the Mets last week. J-Hap's doing it again, people. He's going to make it. He's going to make that decision whether to keep his innings down. Really interesting. 6 1/3, 2 runs, 4 hits, struck out 10 in that 2-1 loss on Tuesday. That wasn't Hap's fault. So I'm going to give J-Hap a little bit of love this week in the 3-up column. So now time for a 3 down, which just shouldn't be that hard. Robert, you go first. 3 down for this week.
Yeah, I had a handful, so I had to make the best 3 choices here. One of them is Mike Tauchman. Guy just cannot seem to figure it out at the plate. He's late just about on every single fastball. I think in that first game in Buffalo, I think there he had a 3-2 count and fouled off maybe 5 straight fastballs. He's got a 29 WRC plus the last 7 days, 215 WOBA. Not really sure what's going on with him because I really do think he's a good player. It's just tough to see him struggling like this. Brett Gardner is another one. Same thing with Tauchman, just can't seem to figure it out at the plate. 230 WOBA, 39 WRC plus. Just a guy that, obviously a fan favorite, obviously a guy everyone loves to root for, a guy who hit 28 home runs somehow last season and then has just kind of lost his way at the plate this year. And then one that, was tough to choose because I actually like him as a backup catcher is Kyle Higashioka. He's been pretty disappointing so far, I would say, as Gary's backup. I think that better days are ahead for him. But yeah, this past week, sub 200 WOBA, 11 WRC plus. There are some hitters on this team, like Tauchman, like Higgy, that are good hitters and are good at the plate and just aren't kind of showing up for some reason. Haven't really looked into it at all. But yeah, those are my 3 down.
Alexis, you're 3 down for this week.
I gotta go Gary Sanchez. Just continuing to struggle, and you want the best for the guy. You really hope he can find his way out of this slump eventually. But just continuing to struggle. We see him doing well behind the plate, but we've talked about at the plate. Just a 165 average right now, and 0 for 3 again tonight. Just needs to come back, or a 121 average, I should say. He's got to get something going soon. And then same thing with Gardner, Brett Gardner. Need to see him come alive. He's also continuing to struggle, and as a big veteran and voice in that clubhouse, this is a time where he needs to start coming out and he needs to start performing well as well. And that's not something that we're seeing from him, and he's voicing his own disgust with himself. That's good to see. But I think we need to see a lot more out of him and soon. And then my 3rd down, I gotta go with Robert and say Kyle Higashioka. Thought he's had a couple subpar games this week. He's had a couple good at bats, but overall, I agree he's not looked his best in relief for Gary Sanchez this year.
All right, so my 3 down for this week. A lot of interesting choices. You guys have echoed some of them. I'm still going to go Gary Sanchez. And look, I feel bad for Gary in this way. Him getting benched those 2 games kind of made it seem like it's all Gary Sanchez's fault. And it's not. But he's the center. He's supposed to be the guy that kind of carries this offense fair or not fair when these guys are out. He's not doing that. But it just seemed like they were kind of making him the spokesperson for why they're struggling and making it seem like, okay, we're going to bench him because we can't bench everybody. Nevertheless, 2 for 15 with 10 strikeouts over the last few games. That's just not going to get it done. Number 2, Can I say the Yankees middle infield minus Gleyber Torres? Because we talked about there was an opportunity for Tyler Wade and Tyler Rashad to get opportunities. Tyler Rashad 2 for 14, 6 strikeouts. Tyler Wade 2 for 17, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks. And when he gets on base in the 10th inning against the Mets, he gets doubled off second base. That can't happen in these kind of games. So when your job at Tyler Wade, when you're on this roster, is to provide speed and good base running, don't screw up on the bases. So the middle infield of Estrada and Wade, they get number 2. And number 3, I'm going to go Jordan Montgomery. I know he got off to a good start to begin the season, and he's got a bright future, and I'm not giving up on him at all. But when you're the starting pitcher on a day where the Yankees and Rays had that scuffle the night before, and you've got to go out there and put a good start and kind of push it on the Rays, and you don't even get out of the first inning, got to be better than that. Got to be better than that. And that kind of set the tone, I think, for this whole week. Not all Montgomery's fault, but that didn't help. And then Labor Day against the Blue Jays, you get a 6-2 lead, and you can't finish 4 innings. 84 pitches, 3 1/3, 2 runs, 6 hits, only 1 strikeout. The Yankees need Jordan Montgomery to be better because he's going to be a guy they rely upon going forward into next year. I mean, he's only 27. He's got a bright future ahead of him. But if you look at the starting rotation as a whole, as I mentioned at the top, the other 4 guys, I mean, you throw Garcia, Happ, Tanaka, and Cole, have been okay. Montgomery's got to kind of get up to that level for the Yankee rotation to at least not be a hindrance on this team. And I think this week Montgomery was. It made the bullpen work a ton. And that affects games going forward as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Sorry, go ahead, Alexis.
No, it's all right. So let's take a look at, and I think we brought up a good point before we preview this Orioles series, and as we update the score, the Orioles did lose to the Mets, so at least the Yankees are a game and a half ahead of the Orioles going to that 4-game series. But I want to look at the whole days off thing. So I think that's been a topic that's been talked about a lot. Alexis, I'll start with you on it. I just feel like the Yankees, they love analytics. They love the numbers. And numbers are great. But 60 games, and I feel like now you're going forward, you got to have everybody play every day as much as you can. I can't sit guys because it tells me, okay, let's take a day off because he needs a break. You're at the position now where you need every game possible. You can't sit everybody. Like having Gleyber Torres sit Sunday after he played Saturday. It should have been once Gleyber Torres came back, he's ready to go. Once certain guys come back, they're ready to play. You don't have time right now, I think, to go one day in, one day out kind of thing.
Yeah, no, there's definitely no time for that. You've got to get going if you want to make playoffs, and that doesn't involve sitting guys right now. If they're struggling, sure, sit them, but I think that's only to a point. Right now is the time where you need that A-game lineup each game. Whether that means, we've got to use some bullpen arms if our starters are struggling, you've got to find a way to win right now. And resting these guys isn't going to cut it. There's 2.5 weeks left in the season. You got to go all out right now.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, especially with the Orioles losing to the Mets, which is awesome. Thank you, Mets, for erasing a 5-1 deficit. But that's what makes this series so important on the resting side against the series coming up against the Orioles. Because if you win 2 out of 3, if you win or if you sweep them, you can be up 3.5 to 4.5 games going on to the last 2 weeks of the season, and that is what can give you a cushion going forward. And I think the Yankees know that, this is pedal to the metal now. They're in the middle of a stretch of 25 games in 26 days. I think the days of kind of giving guys one day off here and there are over for now. And, I think right now it's just got to be about beating the Orioles. And if they're able to do that, then, maybe they have the luxury of giving some days off here and there. But yeah, right now, especially for this series, I think you're going to see the lineup filled with the people it should be filled with, and they're going to go out there and, try to beat them.
So looking at this 4-game series, again, the Yankees with a 1.5-game lead. Garrett Cole takes the ball on Thursday. I believe he's facing Keegan Aiken, who's one of the really good young Orioles pitching prospects, so that should be interesting. I mean, we saw Dean Kramer on Sunday give only 1 hit he was one of the pitchers they got in that Manny Machado trade. And I look at this Orioles team, Robert, and the Yankees made DJ Stewart look good. But DJ Stewart's been on a tear since then, so you could take the Yankees for that. But you look at guys like Ryan Mountcastle, who's fun to watch. Pedro Severino's having a good year. Anthony Santander with 11 home runs. Pretty strong year, I think, for Renato Nunez. Hanser Alberto's hitting over 300. So there's an Oriole team that doesn't have the household names, but they're doing a good job hitting the ball collectively. And going into Yankee Stadium, that's a scary thing when you have basically all these Orioles players clicking at the same time.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's fair. And you bring up DJ Stewart. I actually don't think he's that bad of a player. I mean, obviously his results for the first month of the season were pretty terrible, but I think he's actually a solid hitter. And then you have, like you said, a guy like Hanser Alberto, who is also a good hitter, and Renato Nunez. I mean, those three guys right there are guys that can put the bat to the ball and hit the ball hard and do damage. And you couple that with guys that are hot like Mountcastle and even like Pat Valaika recently. They can come at you and beat you in those ways with their lineup. And you kind of just have to hope, especially, at a place like Yankee Stadium, that the pitching, especially the bullpen, which has been a question, can kind of just show up. And you said it, it's scary to face a team that is in the hunt when they shouldn't have been and is kind of playing a little bit carefree and trying to do, the best they can do in a loose situation, whereas you have the Yankees that are playing every game high pressure, knowing that the expectations are, for them to make the playoffs and make a run at the World Series. So it's really two different worlds that you have for this next 4 games of one team that's kind of just throwing their name in the hat and hoping they come out a winner, and one team that really expects to be in a much better position than it is right now. It should make for an interesting series. I hope it's not so interesting. I hope the Yankees win all 4. It'd be great. But yeah, I mean, the Baltimore lineup isn't totally dismissible. Their pitching is a different story, but yeah, the lineup can hit.
But even looking at their pitching, I mean, last start for Keegan Aiken was pretty good. 5 1/3, 3 hit ball, 8 strikeouts, 4 walks. They don't strike out a lot of guys. Aiken and Kramer really the only exceptions. John Means has only struck out 6 over his last 2 starts. But I think, Alexis, the weird thing with the Orioles, it's kind of like Rays light in a way, and they're run by Mike Elias, who used to be a part of the Houston Astros organization. I mean, Cole Susser leads their team in saves, but he's not exactly that no-name, that big-name closer, if you will. So it's really a case of the Orioles mixing and matching. And we saw with the Rays, the Yankees kind of really don't have answers for that at times. And you'll see Hunter Harvey at points try to get big outs, former top prospect as a starter, now reliever. You'll see former Yankee Dylan Tate even at some points. So it'd be interesting to see how the Yankees handle if it's late in the game against some guys that they don't see too often and figured them out the first time at Camden Yards. I mean, the Orioles, to be quite honest, should have swept the Yankees last week.
Yeah, and I hate to say that it was surprising that they didn't sweep us. But yeah, and I think he kind of bringing James's word back of Weedard and the Yankees not doing well against Weedard. I think we've seen that with the Orioles. They're the team that people have slept on, and here they are with a shot at making playoffs. Well, here the Yankees are a shot of maybe not making playoffs. They've got to figure out the Orioles. That last series was rough for the Yankees, and they can't afford another rough series this week. They've got to find a way to beat the Orioles. Now it's a run for the standings for the Yankees. No, they don't have a closer who's an Aroldis Chapman or a Zach Britton, but they've got a closer who can come in and get the job done, and they've got to find a way to get a hold of their pitching and put the bats on the ball.
So that should be a big-time series to watch this week. Anything else stand out to you guys in terms of the playoff picture? Because I'm intrigued by Seattle in a way. I think I always want to come up with the question in a way, who's more in danger of missing, the Yankees or the Astros? Now, the Astros got Alex Bregman, I believe, back in the next day or so, if not today. Houston's got more injury problems than the Yankees do. I mean, Lance McCullers just went down, and they got Zach Greinke and a bunch of kids in their rotation, it feels like. So it's weird to say the Yankees and Astros are both in danger of missing the playoffs.
Yeah, but I think that's the situation we're sitting in right now, is that. And I think at the beginning of the season, everybody thought, Seattle's not going to do anything. We don't have to worry about Seattle. And here they are creeping up. Again, we talked about these sleeper teams at the beginning of the season. when we were all making our predictions. I don't think any of us predicted Seattle to be where they are, but they had a good draft, had a good free agency, and here they are proving it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just kind of one of those seasons where you can take advantage of the weirdness of baseball, right? And really the luck factor that comes into it. I think you look at a lot of these teams, such as the Orioles, a team that, like you said, Rick, doesn't strike out a lot of guys, yet their pitching numbers have been, results-wise pretty good. But if you look at their expected numbers, they're kind of in a different world to some degree, and that's the same with some of these other teams like the Mariners and the Tigers. In a 60-game season, the luck factor is just a little bit bigger, which is kind of why I hope, especially for the rest of the season, with a team like the Astros, teams like the Yankees, although the Astros actually have not been horribly unlucky, but the Yankees is a little bit of a regression to the mean this weekend. I mean, I hope we're able to get to the Orioles pitching a little better. I hope, things kind of level out a little bit more in terms of our bullpen, in terms of Ottavino, in terms of Chad Green. And that's what it comes down to in the 60-game year. It's just the luck factor and kind of being able to make up for that in spots and, at least just being aware of it at some points.
So what I remind you is, well, you can go to pinstripeprospects.com. Our founder, Rob Pimpsner, has a great article about the minor league baseball future. It's titled MILB Future Still Murky But Becoming Clear. A lot of good stuff in here. Particularly maybe the Yankees getting an affiliate in Somerset, New Jersey. I think that would be pretty interesting if they chose to go a different direction there. A lot's going to be changing over the next weeks and months in terms of minor league baseball, because who knows still what it will look like next year. I mean, we'll be here to cover it for you every step of the way. But we talked about a lot of different changes that could possibly happen due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and also due to the MLB and MILB trying to work out a new agreement. So everything could change in that process. So Rob's got it all covered for you on the website if you're looking for any information on that. We've got great interviews. We've talked to Yankees players in the minor leagues. I know Alexis did that interview with Trevor Holloway over the past week. And check that out with our Dugout Membership Program. I've done Coaches Insight Series interviews with Ocean Gavonia's former pitching coach Xander Klaus. We've talked with Addison Russ, who's doing great stuff down at the alternate site. We've seen some videos down there. He's doing pretty good down in Scranton. So a lot you can check out over at pinstripeprospects.com. In addition to our major league coverage, which Robert helps out with as well and does some really good things with. Last thing I want to get into, and we'll do final thoughts. Can I just say, I want to echo this again. 2020 sucks because since we last were here, Major League Baseball's lost two great players in the history of the sport and two great people, Tom Seaver and Lou Brock. I know Seaver hits home to a lot of people in New York. My mom is a Mets fan. She was a kid in '69 when they won the championship, and that's the franchise. I mean, the Mets aren't anywhere without Tom Seaver. And for Lou Brock, I mean, that's a guy that was Ricky Henderson before Ricky Henderson in a way. This was really one of the top speed guys in all of baseball. And one of the guys who identify the most with the St. Louis Cardinals, outside of maybe Stan Musial and Bob Gibson. I mean, you could throw Pujols in there, I guess, but Lou Brock's right up there. I just want to throw that out there before we go to final thoughts. Just 2020 sucks. We're losing too many great people.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It's been one of those years. Obviously, everything kind of gets magnified when you're predisposed to thinking that the year already sucks, and things just keep piling on. But hopefully things get a little better. The sights get a little clearer looking forward, and yeah, I mean, Tom Seaver, Lou Brock, just icons of baseball. Obviously, tough to lose them in any year. So thoughts and prayers to their family, of course.
Yeah, definitely echo that, and the thoughts and prayers with the Seaver family and those we lost this past week, for sure.
I also want to throw that out there before we get into our final thoughts. Friday is also an emotional day here in the tri-state area and across the country as well, with the anniversary of 9/11, 19 years. So thoughts to all those affected by 9/11. So keep that in your mind as well this week. Yankees will be home on Friday for the Orioles, so we'll see. I'm sure they'll do something great going there. So let's get into final thoughts. Again, if you're new to the show, it could be about, well, anything you want. And you never know where it's going to go. And I think that's just the fun part. Alexis, why don't you start us off? What's your final thought for this week?
Final thought is the Yankees picked up a win tonight. Hopefully we can get that going and keep that winning alive. My second final thought, the NFL season starts tomorrow. This is the last night without football. Hallelujah, praise God, it is back. Kind of an exciting game for me in the Colts or Texans and Chiefs tomorrow. Got to pull for those Chiefs to give the Texans a division loss there. And then my Jags playing back at home on Sunday. Get to be back at TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville. So I'm excited for that. Excited to be back with our team and to see the guys get out on that field.
Definitely, I'm glad football is back. I mean, I'll let Robert go next, but I mean, I'm a big Pats fan, so I'm excited for the anticipation of something new for the first time in 20 years. I mean, I'm 27 years old, and I saw Drew Bledsoe, but most of my life, Tom Brady's been the quarterback. So to see Cam Newton in a different era of Patriot football, I mean, I'm nervous about it, but I'm excited about it. And so I'm looking forward to watching the game Sunday and new era in a way. So it'll be pretty cool. Robert, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so final thoughts as it relates to the Yankees. And I know I've said this maybe a little bit too much on this podcast, but I just think this team has gotten incredibly unlucky. It's been tough to watch. Yeah, there have been games where you want to throw your remote control across the room, which is totally fair. Usually that happens, based on a couple things not going our way. I think this team is a lot better than the results have shown. As someone, obviously I write a lot covering the MLB. I try to look at expected numbers a lot. The Yankees' expected numbers are, much better than their actual results. And hopefully, it's a short season, so it's tough to make that up. But, there's 3 weeks here, 4 games out against the Orioles. I think they'll turn it around. I think they'll be fine. That's just my hunch and just kind of, what I see and obviously what I hope to happen. I'm obviously biased. I'm a big Yankee fan. On the football side, I guess go Jets. I'm a huge Jets fan, and I tend to get excited for about 1 week, and then they rip my heart out in week 1 and the season's over. And Rick, you brought up Cam Newton. It would not surprise me in the slightest as a Jets fan if Cam Newton just returned to the Super Bowl Cam Newton and just put us Jets fans into misery again for the next however many years. So, Pats are probably going to go 12-4, win the division, go win the Super Bowl or something, Same story, different year.
I've said 9-10 wins, and I'll just echo people. Don't get too high on the Bills. Let's see what the Bills do when they're actually expected to be good.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the Bills were one of the luckiest teams. I keep bringing up luck. Got to stop myself. But, I think the Bills were one of the luckiest teams in the NFL last year. I'm interested to see what they do with expectations, for the first time in a long time.
So my final thoughts for this week, I'll keep it a couple of things. I want to keep it baseball related just to start off with. One, the Dodgers are really good. I mean, every time I feel like I turn on the TV and they're trailing, they just still find a way to win. I think the playoff race is going to be really interesting, especially in the National League, because I don't know who's going to make it in the National League. I mean, the Giants somehow always seem to find a way to win. You got the Marlins and Phillies playing 7 games coming up. And that's going to be really interesting, a 7-game series. When do you ever see that? By the way, the Braves and Marlins, as we do this show, it's like the 7th inning, and it's like 25-9. No, this is not a football score. The Falcons aren't beating the Dolphins. This is actually a baseball score, 25-9. I don't know how we get to that point, but that's just where it is. For the National League, I think is really intriguing outside of, the Dodgers are really good because that 7 and 8 spots could be Colorado, could be San Francisco, could be the Marlins, could be the Mets. See a lot of DeGrom and Lugo down the stretch. So keep an eye on the NL playoff race. I think that's interesting. And I'm going to go a different sport. I'm going to go to tennis. U.S. Open. I talked a little bit about it last week. And you had the big controversy where Novak Djokovic hit the ball and it struck a linesperson. He should have been defaulted in the match. I know people say, well, he didn't mean to hit her, but it hit her. That's just the way it goes. Sad way for him to lose his first match of the year, but you can't do that. I mean, you can't do the what if it was an inch to the right. Well, that's not the case. We talked about last week with Chapman. where, yeah, what if it hit him in the head? Well, it's a little different than just missing his head. So just the way it goes. Also, keep an eye this weekend. Serena Williams going for title number 24. She's in the semifinals on Thursday night against Victoria Azarenka, who is a past champion, past major champion. She's never won the U.S. Open, but she's making a big run. Those are also two moms going at it in this match. And Naomi Osaka is also doing great things for the awareness of social justice. She's in the semifinals and could see an Osaka-Serena rematch on Saturday. Of course, we all remember what happened 2 years ago with Serena and the Chair Empire in that match, so that would be exciting. So your daily tennis fix. And also, you got a big college football game, right? Clemson Wake this week. And basketball, the bubble's going great. Watch a double overtime game. And Islanders in the Stanley Cup playoffs and the conference finals. So those give you a good mix of what you catch on Kicking with Keeler every Thursday, getting all the sports here. So before we wrap up the show, want to give everybody a chance to plug themselves on Twitter. Alexis, you can go first with our social media coverage and all that.
Yeah, you can find me at Alexis Farinacci on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Simple, just my name.
And Robert, how can they follow you on Twitter?
Yes, so the handle is at rcoles, RCOLES 0206. I try to post all the articles that I write, as well as, hopefully this podcast, trying to get some, more of my opinions out there as well, taking a dip into the Twitter world that way. So, shoot me a follow. I'd really appreciate it.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Rickinator555 and catch my show Kicking the Keeler every Thursday. Oh, not every Thursday, but every week. We're going to have a great show this week. Ryan Adver-Duraza joined me. We're going to preview the NFC and do a little week one word association. And for those who aren't familiar with with word association, basically it's like when you go, if you ever seen a show where they go to like a psychologist or things like that, and they show them like an ink blot and the first word or phrase that pops into your head, that's what we do with NFL matchups. So you never know what you might get with how I describe matchups during the week. So you can check that out. Definitely some great shows. We reached 40 episodes. 40th episode went up the other day. I talked about the AFC and a little bit more of what's going on in baseball as well. You can follow us on Twitter at Pinstripe Pros. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Alexis is doing great things with the Instagram. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Please give us a rating. I hope it's 5 stars. I just want to hear from you what you like, what you don't like. Send me an email, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Chances are Pinstripe Prospects Podcast is there. So be sure to check it out. And again, please sign up for our Dugout membership program. Again, it's $5.50 a month, $40 a year. And you get your first 30 days free if you use the promo code #WelcomeBackBaseball. Again, #WelcomeBackBaseball. That's the promo code, and you can check it out there. So hopefully we'll have James back next week. Had some technical difficulties, but thank you to Robert for filling in. Did a fantastic job. And I think Robert can be like our sabermetrics analytics guy on the program, doing a good job bringing up the first time on the show. I think this year we've had the WOBA brought up.
The WOBA, the WRC plus.
we need a little bit of that. So I appreciate we bring the numbers and kind of bring everything into perspective. So good job by Robert on that. And again, be sure to look at our founder Rob Pimster's article on what's the future of minor league baseball. Really interesting piece on the website this week, so check it out. So from all of us here at Pinstripe Prospects, have a great weekend. Enjoy Yankees, Orioles. Stay safe. Wear a mask. I'll be back with you next week to talk about this series. And I believe the Yankees are playing the Blue Jays again when we come back next week. I know they got a series with the Red Sox, but I think that's next weekend.
Yes, we will be playing the Blue Jays at home next week when we record again.
So be sure to check that out. And I'm sure by the time I ended the show, the Braves might have scored a few more runs. So enjoy the rest of the week, and I will see you back here next week.
Have a great night.